I think everyone would agree with me that it is pretty fair to say that we here in Europe live in some very turbulent times. I would add to that these troubles we are going through were created due to a large extent by a social and political lack of will to confront the causing factors of the problem, and that now, as we stand at the brink of breaking that wall of self-censorship and silence that has been built over the past decade by the regressive left, it will be time to undo the damage and look for well-thought-through solutions to the problem that is the hostile Islamic migrant community of Europe, whilst keeping in mind that we can't, under any circumstances, breach our own values centered around the free and open democratic societies that we have built since the end of the Second World War and the collapse of communism. Those of you who might be subscribed to my friend Sandra will remember that shortly before I left to go on vacation, we had a live stream on his channel with Nick Goroff and Shrekbrain, in which we touched on the issue of the burkini ban in France. Coincidentally, around the same time in Germany, a burqa and niqab ban was being proposed by segments of the Conservative Party and by tabloid papers and public figures. Let's talk about the burkini ban. A burkini is this ridiculous bathing suit which is supposed to give Muslim women the chance to go bathing in a public bath or beach without having to uncover their hair. Now, I can go on a long tangent over how ridiculous these head coverings to appease some invisible sky daddy are, but it is besides the point. France has a very aggressive separation of religion and state. You might have heard of it in the past, and the French refer to it as laïcité. The term itself, as well as the nature of French secularism, come out of the 19th century and the revolutions through which France went back then, when it meant that the freedom of public institutions from the influence of the Catholic Church had to be established, which had prior to the French Revolution dominated both the public institutions as well as the political institutions of France. And as you can imagine, the Catholic Church in France was one of the main contributors to the country's misery when it was still a monarchy, which led to this very aggressive pushback against religious influence in politics and public institutions, and created this French secular tradition that continues up to this day and can be found in other French-speaking regions of the world, such as Quebec. France as such has throughout the past years consistently enforced its distinctive secularism for which it is known throughout Europe. Wearing religious symbols in schools and public buildings can get you into trouble, and if you work in public service, it is not allowed to wear religious symbols. This includes everything from Islamic headscarves to Christian crucifixes to Jewish kippahs to Sikh headdresses. There is, however, a problem I have with this, and that is that I do not believe this strict French style of secularism to be right. The separation of church and state does indeed mean that religious doctrines must be kept out of politics and public institutions, and also means that the state is not allowed to enforce any kind of religious doctrine. But more crucially and more important, the separation of religion and state exists to manifest and clearly outline the individual citizen's right to express their religious views and to hold their religious views without fear of recrimination by the state. It is not just you, but also me, who will make arguments against the Islamic head coverings as an outdated and backward symbol of an early medieval cult, a relic of an era we left a long time ago. Yet despite what you may think about this, a person who chooses to wear a veil has the right to do so in any free society. And this isn't just a matter concerning Muslims. The rights that are guaranteed through the separation of church and state are not just guaranteed to them, they outline that all religions, legally and socially, are supposed to have an equal standing and to be treated equally before the law. These rights apply equally for all religious and non-religious groups, which means that if you let a law like this pass through without any oppositions, you are putting yourself at risk of arbitrary government measures against you because of your religious beliefs or your lack thereof. Because in the end, letting something like this pass means that you are giving your stamp of approval to the state to take action against people for exercising their rights. As such, I cannot approve of a burkini ban. The burkini is not a security risk to society, and honestly, I believe that letting them wear it will over the long term have the secularizing process that we need. Just look at this picture here during the Olympics and this picture taken on a French beach. There is a reason why the Olympic picture was censored in Iranian media, and it is this this kind of censorship which will not be available to those who choose to go swimming wearing a burkini. Wearing this silly suit, the people who choose to wear it will have no other choice but to confront themselves with a society that in terms of values stands in opposition to this early medieval Middle Eastern social standard. And I would honestly rather see French Muslims bluntly confronted with that fact through their own choices rather than having to enforce an arbitrary ban that undermines constitutional rights. Similar things also have to be said about the proposed burqa and niqab ban in Germany. For starters, I would like you all to take a closer look through all the variants of Islamic headdresses for women. There's the hijab, chimar, chador, niqab, and burqa. Chador, niqab, and burqa are those that cover the entire body. Chador you will most likely find in Iran, where it will be worn by the most religious. Niqab is something that you have probably seen before, as it comes out of the Arabian Gulf and is a product of Wahhabi Islam. If you see one of these, there are only three possibilities. The person wearing this is from the Arab Gulf states, the person wearing this is a Wahhabi Islamist, or the person wearing this is forced into wearing it by her Wahhabi Islamist family. And the burqa, as we all know, comes out of Afghanistan and is a wretched and disgusting rag used in a barbaric way as a tool of oppression during the rule of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Now, let me throw out a number that might surprise you. As far as we know, there are no Muslim women in Germany who wear the burqa. And concerning the niqab, guess how many women in Germany are estimated to wear one of those? 8,000. At best, 10,000. That number is so small, it is neglectable. This really is a small segment within the wider Muslim population of Germany. More to the point, I have to agree with the president of the German Police Union when he said that a burqa and niqab ban would be pointless from a security perspective, and he supports it as a social policy measure. Fact is that women who would wear the niqab in Germany are either Wahhabist extremists themselves or are forced by their Wahhabist extremist family members to wear it, meaning that if you wear that rag, chances are that your online activities, your mosque, and other activities you engage in are probably already being surveilled by the German security services. More importantly, there have already been precedent cases and incidents that show the consequences of wearing the niqab in Germany. A woman who sued the German state for cutting her unemployment benefits turned up in court in a niqab. After refusing to remove it or to show her face, the judge found her in contempt of court, which was probably a big contributor to her losing the case. Women who turn up at banks in a niqab were told by the bank management to either remove it or to leave the bank. A girl who applied for a school in a hijab but then turned up at school in a niqab was kicked out of that school, and when her parents sued the school, they lost the case. A woman in a niqab who was called to court as a witness and refused to take her niqab off in the witness stand was certified to have a lack of credibility as a witness by the judge ruling over the case. Women have been denied university applications if they applied in a niqab and refused to take it off. Women who started turning up in niqabs for work have been fired. In yet another court case where a woman decided to turn up in niqab and refused to take it off, the judge simply decided to rule that she was simply not present as long as she refused to take off the niqab. And in case you might not know, even though it should be obvious, police as well as security officers have the right to demand from a person to take off any Islamic headdress. So as you can see, the choice of wearing this headdress does already come with some severe consequences within wider society, and I would go so far as to say that the niqab in particular is already frowned upon by wider society. And when you add to that the number of women who wear it is really insignificant, as it lies by barely 8,000, I have to honestly ask, what is the point of such a law? What is the point of the law that is being proposed? Would it really serve any kind of purpose? Honestly, if you ask me, both the burkini ban in southern France as well as the proposed burqa and niqab ban in Germany are nothing more but virtue signaling, or even just nothing more but petty attempts at trying to distract the public from issues with more relevance. In France, throughout recent years, we had multiple terrorist attacks, multiple attempted terrorist attacks, and hostile self-segregated Islamist communities throughout major French cities, which are openly hostile towards wider French society. Do you really believe that banning women from wearing a bikini at a public beach will contribute anything to solving the problems at hand? To me, both these proposed bans seem like the frantic actions of politicians who try to look good in the light of recent events. At the one hand, you have French politicians who, after years of French society being confronted with Islamic barbarism, decided to make this pointless gesture to look good in the public eye. And then you have the right wing of the German Conservative Party, which probably proposed the niqab ban out of similar motivations. So far in the year 2016, we have already had 20 honor killings in Germany. Honor killings are murders in which a member of a family breaks a set of archaic, usually Islamic social rules and is consequently murdered by another family member. This can be various things, from parents murdering their own daughter because she dated a non-Muslim, to a parent murdering their child for refusing to take part in a forced marriage. I'm giving you the example of honor killings to illustrate to you how this problem is far more than just limited to the small specific set of Wahhabi Islamists who are probably surveilled by the intelligence services anyway. Honor killings, mass sexual assaults, as well as the crime statistics I showed earlier in another video clearly indicate that the problem our society faces is one that is not merely caused by a small group of barely 8,000 people. Whilst the Wahhabist section of the Muslim population is without a doubt responsible for most of the terrorist attacks and attempted terrorist attacks in the past, problems such as those manifested by the strong Muslim presence within the crime statistics are caused by the cultural values of the wider Muslim population, and a measure such as banning a burkini or niqab will not accomplish anything in confronting the hostile cultural mindset. I know some will say that this is better than nothing, or that at the very least shows that there is now some political will to do something. Well, that political will would be better invested in other measures. How about banning foreign funding of religious institutions, consequently shutting down Saudi, Kuwaiti and Emirati financed mosques, of which we know that they stand at the center of most what is going wrong? Or how about discussing a proper immigration policy and bringing some order into that mess that we have created? Strictly enforcing the laws of the land with a disregard for cultural sensitivities and without a self-censoring attitude would also be far better as a starting point than throwing around proposals that might be outright unconstitutional. I believe it is good that we are finally getting to a point where the political will is finally being shown to confront this problem, but I have to appeal for a calm, rational and well thought through approach rather than pointless, arbitrary measures.